Hello, today I'll talk about laparoscopic surgery in detail. So let's start. As it is written, first I'll start with discussing laparoscopic instruments. As you can see, this is a laparoscopic forceps. You can say it is a Maryland's dissecting forceps. It has three parts: the tip, the shaft, and the handle. The important points to note are the shaft should be insulated. Otherwise, if there is lack of insulation, it will touch the organs and it can cause burns on the organs. Or if two forceps intersect each other, the patient could suffer a shock, or the internal organs could get burnt. This is a 360-degree rotating angle for rotating the tip of the instrument, and this is an electrosurgical attachment for attaching the electrosurgical wire so that the forceps becomes cautery and we could cut easily. Then there are different types of instruments which perform different functions. This is a Metzebaum cutting forceps. The Metzebaum cutting forceps is used for cutting internal organs. Example, the pedicel of the appendix during a laparoscopic appendectomy. This is the dissecting forceps, also known as Maryland's dissecting forceps. The cutting forceps has a scissor-like tip. The dissecting forceps has fenestrations, and it has a single large fenestration, and it has grooves. You can say horizontal grooves. The grasping forceps has a central large vertical groove, and narrow dot-like fenestrations are present. You can not say fenestrations, moreover grooves. These are the different types of tips used for different functions. Yes, the grasping forceps, the commonly used grasping forceps is the West's grasping forceps. There are two types of grasping forceps, that is atraumatic grasping forceps and traumatic grasping forceps. The atraumatic grasping forceps does not have a pointed edge at the tip of the laparoscopic instrument, while the traumatic grasping forceps has a better grasping, as it has a needle-like tip in front of the tip of the instrument, but it causes trauma to the internal structure. But it can be used for appendicectomy, cholecystectomy, as we do not bother if the structure get injured, as we have to remove it anyway. This is a laparoscopic hook used for anchoring to structures and retracting structures. This is a laparoscopic needle driver for suturing. When electricity is passed, these instruments can be used for cutting, coagulating, and dissecting. These forceps, they give bipolar cauterization, that is, cautery pad need not be attached to the patient, while the hook, if the electrical current is passed through it, electrical attachment is attached to it, it gives monopolar cauterization. That means cautery pad has to be attached with it to the patient. Then there is a mirroring and scaling movement due to liver and arm property of the instruments. There is I'll explain it further. There is limited field of view in laparoscopic surgery. There is loss of tactile feedback. There is limited motions. Like robotic surgery, it surpasses these limitations, that there are wristed movements in the robotic surgery instruments. Wristed means the movement from the tip, like the circular movements from the tip. Those are known as wristed movements. So I'll read this point also. The depth perception, it is surpassed by 3D laparoscopy. In conventional 2D laparoscopy, there is no depth perception, but in 3D laparoscopy, there is depth perception. So what happens, that the abdominal wall acts as a fulcrum. So there is the mirroring between intracorporeal and extracorporeal movements. That means the abdominal wall acts like a fulcrum, and if we move our instrument to the left, the tip will move towards the right. So this is known as a mirroring effect. And one is the liver arm and other is the load arm. Our hand acts as the liver, and the internal organ which is held is the load. Now this is the ergonomics of the laparoscopic instruments. There should be triangulation of ports. That means a trocar should be placed here, the second trocar should be placed here, and the port of the camera is here. So this is the field of the light source. So what are the advantages of this technique? That the instruments do not interfere with each other. Then this does not happen in SILS, that is single insertion laparoscopic surgery. The SILS port does not allow triangulation of ports. Then the one more you can say advantage here is that if they do not touch each other, they like if the instruments have no insulation, so they would not cause burns. This is also known as billiard triangulation, as it resembles a billiard board. These are the ergonomics of the instruments. This is the abdominal cavity, you can say. The angle between in the center is a 0-degree laparoscope. These are the laparoscopy instruments. The angle between the laparoscope and the instrument is known as the manipulation angle of the instrument, which is commonly 45 degree to 75 degree. The angle between the base of the abdominal wall and the instruments is known as the elevation angle. It is normally 30 degree to 60 degree. The azimuth angle is the angle between the laparoscope and the instruments. It is from another angle. It is not same as instrument manipulation angle. It is from another, you can say, dimension. Just sectional laparoscopy. What is sectional laparoscopy? Like if you have to do an appendicectomy, lap appendicectomy, a imaginary line is drawn from the light source diagonally and 2 ports are made, one in each of the triangles which are formed, and the instruments which are put, they operate in that area only. So you get a fixed area for an instrument. So this is known as sectional laparoscopy. This is a much organized way of doing surgeries. If we have a larger field of view, then we need larger manipulation angle, and if we have a smaller field of view, we need a smaller manipulation angle. The elevation angle can be changed by moving the table. Like if we want a higher elevation angle here, we can move the OT table lower, so we can get a higher elevation angle. As you can see, here is the laparoscope. The two functions of the laparoscope are CO2 insufflation and light source. Here, this is the light cable, and this is the CO2 insufflation cable. Which help in the functions of the laparoscope. They are both attached to the laparoscope here. This is the procedure which we do before doing the surgery. That is known as the white balancing of the camera. So what happens with the white balancing of the camera? We take a white colored gauze and we point the camera towards it, and we press the white balancing button. So it gets you can say the settings of the laparoscope and the camera get changed according to the whiteness of the gauze. So it is basically a way of adjusting the settings of the camera. And one more thing is that you have to first look to the laparoscope from your eye, not to the camera. So for the melting of the optic cable, the inner optic cable, we can see that, and we can see if a proper field of view is there, if there is not any obstruction or any defect in the optical tube. And we should never touch the tip of the laparoscope to the tissues, as it is a very heated tip due to the light rays coming in high energy, so it can cause burns. And never keep it on the table also, because the tablecloth covers the table, so it can cause burns. So always keep it at the edge of the table. There are three techniques of insufflation. There is the open technique, the closed technique, and the hybrid technique. The insufflation is done at the umbilicus. As we know, it is cosmetically better, and then it is a non-vascular structure, and there are no structures attached to the umbilicus, so there is lesser chances of injury to the internal structures. The closed method of insufflation is by the Verey's needle. Closed means it is a blind approach. We do not see the internal structures during the insertion of the Verey's needle. First an incision is taken at the umbilicus, then the Verey's needle is inserted. As you can see, this is the Verey's needle. It has a blind approach. Then it is a sharp trocar, and it has a blunt tip. The tip has the hole with which the CO2 insufflation occurs. It has two different giveaways or pop sound can be heard. One, when you pierce the fascia. So what happens when you pierce the fascia? The retractable blunt tip is inside, and the outer tip is pointing towards the fascia and is cutting the fascia. So once it inserts, then the blunt tip comes out. So we can say it is a giveaway. A pop sound is heard, and we know that it has passed through the fascia. Then the second giveaway occurs at the peritoneum, specifically the parietal peritoneum. So when you insert it, it gives a giveaway, and the blunt tip comes out. There are two main tests for checking that the Verey's needle has been placed intraperitoneally and not in any of the spaces of the abdominal wall. One is the syringe test. That is the saline. You put saline and then you try to aspirate it back. If it gets aspirated, that means it is in some internal organ or the bowel or one of the layers of the abdominal wall. And if there is correct insufflation, that means no fluid can be aspirated. The second is the saline drip test. 1 to 2 drips of saline are put on the tip of the outer tip of the Verey's needle, and if the drops get sucked in, it means that the tip of the Verey's needle is in the intraperitoneal cavity. Otherwise, if they do not get sucked in, that means the pressure is not apt for sucking of the saline drops. That means it is not in the intraperitoneal space. Whenever we put the Verey's needle, we lift the abdominal wall. So we can say that there is lesser chance of puncturing of the internal organs when we lift the abdominal wall and then insert the Verey's needle. What happens by CO2 insufflation? What are the advantages? It pushes the viscera down, and it pulls the abdominal wall up. So there is a larger field and lesser chances of damaging the internal organs. The abdominal wall lifting increases the distance between the abdominal wall and the viscera and decreases the chances of perforating the internal organs, or we can say the viscera. The insufflation is first started at a low flow rate, like 16 mm of Hg, then pressure, and then when we know that only the abdomen is insufflating and not any abdominal space, so then we started at a high then we gradually take it up to a high flow rate of 15 mm of Hg. Open method is by the Hassen's trocar. First an intra-umbilical lesion is made. Then we first see the linea alba, we cut through it, then we see the parietal peritoneum, then we cut through it, and then the Hassen's trocar can be inserted under vision. Before insertion, a finger is put to check any adhesions or any internal organs, and if there are no adhesions with the abdominal wall or no internal organs, we insert the Hassen's trocar. The hybrid technique is that using a trocar with a transparent tip. So insufflation is done along with insertion of the trocar, and the layers can be viewed during insertion. As you can see in the image, while inserting the trocar, the layers of the abdominal wall are being viewed. We first start with a low flow rates such as 6 mm of Hg, and then increase it gradually after we know that the intraperitoneal access is confirmed. The insufflation pressure for slim patients, as we know their abdominal wall is tight as compared to obese patients, the pressure used is 6 mm of Hg, and for fat is 15 mm of Hg, sorry. And for you can say fat patients, first we do not take it high. For slim patients, we do not take it high on the ones. We first keep it low to like 6 mm of Hg, then we start increasing it gradually. So if we find that if at 10 mm of Hg we can we have a moderate field of view or a apt field of view, then we do not increase it further, as surgery done at lower insufflation pressure is a better surgery than done at a higher insufflation pressure. Mostly for obese patients, the insufflation pressure is 6 mm of Hg, and then it is increased if necessary. And before removing the trocars and removing all the CO2 in the abdominal cavity, we first reduce the pressure gradually and then stop the insufflation. The reason for that is first of all, if any incision on the veins is there, the pressure will prevent it from bleeding. So if we reduce the pressure, any incisions which have been taken by mistake on the vein will start bleeding, so we will know that a bleeding is there. And second of all, you cannot just lower the insufflation pressure, as it will damage the abdominal cavity, so we reduce it gradually. Okay, so thank you.